Jerry the King Lawler suffered what was described as a massive stroke in Fort Myers, Florida on Monday, where he keeps a condo. There are conflicting versions of exactly what happened. One version being that after having lunch with his friends, he was found face down in the parking lot of his condo. Another version comes from Dutch Mantell, who has been friends with Lawler for decades. He spoke with Jerry's son Kevin, who said that his father had driven his moped scooter to a store on the corner, not far from his condo, when the shop owners noticed that he was a little unsteady on his feet. And the store's owner has a daughter who just so happened to be there and just so happens to work as a nurse at a hospital that specializes in strokes. And she recognized the signs right away. They called 911 and they got him to a hospital. Whichever version you want to believe, he was rushed into emergency surgery. He had no movement on one side of his body. I believe it was the right side. And at first, he was unable to speak at all. People close to him were very concerned about the paralysis on the right side, especially because of his artwork. Lawler is an incredible artist. I mean, whatever you think of him as a person, he's an incredible artist. He's really got a gift for it. By later that same day, he had regained partial use of his right arm. He had some speech, although his speech is still affected. They say that's one of the last things to come around. Depending on the severity of the stroke, some people never speak normally again. Others recover enough to where you would never even know they had a stroke. It's just too early to know which camp he falls into. Lawler was just on the Royal Rumble kickoff panel less than 2 weeks before this. And he was in Florida to attend the old-time comic show's Heroes Meet Horror Con. He does a lot of these conventions. Last Saturday, he had planned to spend the entire week at his condo. This is according to his friend Dave Brown, who, along with Lance Russell, was a staple for years on Memphis Wrestling. Brown said that he spoke to Lawler via FaceTime early Tuesday afternoon and was very encouraged. He told the Memphis Commercial Appeal, "Some of the initial reports were just horrible. So I feel much better than I did 18 hours ago when I felt like I got hit in the face with a shovel. I was incredibly encouraged after I did FaceTime. Jerry was alert. He talked to me. He could only say a couple of words at a time, which is pretty normal. But he was able to move both legs and both arms. I feel very optimistic that he is eventually going to recover." Someone posted to Lawler's Twitter account on Wednesday with photos of him in the hospital with Jimmy Hart visiting, saying that with rehab, he is expected to make a full recovery. The next day, his girlfriend Lauren posted on Lawler's Twitter page that he was out of ICU and he would be returning to his Florida home for outpatient rehab for his limited speech and cognitive skills. And doctors are hopeful for a full recovery, and she said that Jerry is looking forward to returning to his fans very soon. For all the health issues that this man has had, he has got to be the luckiest son of a bitch in the world. He had a heart attack on live television in 2012 that almost killed him. Actually, it did kill him for 20 minutes. This was, of course, the whole Monday Night Raw situation. His heart stopped beating for what they claimed was 20 minutes before they brought him back. It was Dr. Sampson, who now works for AEW, who saved his life. And he had no visible lingering issues from it, speech-wise, cognitively. He made a full recovery. It's like he came out of it unscathed. Then he had a stroke in 2018, the first one. This week was not the first stroke that he's ever had. He had one 5 years ago after having sex with the same Lauren who tweeted from his account the other day. And he told the story on his podcast at the time. I'm sure he loved telling this story. That he had, he made sweet love with his, I think she was his fiance at the time, but whatever. And then she looked at his face and she noted his face was like drooping. Half his face was like sagging. He looked in the mirror and said, "Oh my God." And they realized that he was having a stroke, and she rushed him to the hospital to find out that he had a hemorrhage in his brain that landed him in intensive care for 3 days, 2 of which he couldn't speak. That was 2.5 weeks before WrestleMania 34. By the time WrestleMania rolled around, he was back on commentary for the Andre Battle Royal, and he hosted the Hall of Fame ceremony that year like nothing ever happened. You know how many people have heart attacks and strokes and don't live to tell about it? let alone have no obvious lingering issues from it. So now he has another stroke and survives, and they expect him to make a full recovery. This guy's got more lives than a cat. But the man is 73 years old, so anytime there's a serious medical episode like a stroke, there's reason to be concerned about that sort of thing. He'll probably fare better than most with his recovery, based on the sounds of it. WWE wouldn't let him back in the ring after his cardiac arrest, but he's still been wrestling independently every year since then. He doesn't need the money. He does it for fun. He's been doing it for so long. To him, it's fun. It's what he does. I mean, he's made no bones about the fact when he's been interviewed over the years that him doing commentary in WWE was never his intent. He's not really a fan of doing commentary. Think about how long he's been doing commentary for WWE for, going back to 1992, 1993. It was never a passion of his. He did it because they asked him to do it. And so he became part of this iconic duo during the Attitude Era, which was the most popular period in the history of the company. It just so happened that he was on commentary with Jim Ross. So that's how so many fans grew up watching him, and they'll know him first as a commentator, not a wrestler. If you grew up in Memphis, especially around the time when he was the champion, he was the top star there, you have a very different opinion and viewpoint of Jerry the King Lawler than people who only know him from watching Raw and SmackDown. He wrestled 10 matches last year. He just wrestled the Beer City Bruiser a few weeks ago, which marked 53 consecutive years in the ring, which is pretty insane. My guess is the Beer City Bruiser will not end up being the last opponent that he steps into the ring with, but he should be. I mean, if you're an indie promoter, would you take the chance of putting a 73-year-old with 2 strokes and a heart attack in the ring? That doesn't seem very wise. As Josh Matthews once told, actually many times, told referee Tim White when they used to do the old skits together, Mr. White, that's not very wise. This is what they have state athletic commissions for. But that's the update on Jerry Lawler. He is on the mend.